decides, so can the president. So it behooves the entire ruling class to be more cautious, to be more accountable. And in fact, if anything comes out of this impeachment, Ken, I would like to see the ruling class always referencing Constitution, always upholding and respecting the Constitution and the oath of office that they took. That is the one outcome of this impeachment process that I predict will make Kenya actually a better country and will fly in the face of what naysayers like Muraya are saying. Thank you.
We sumeongea umesema yako yote. All right, we are heading to the second hour, and Alenga Mzalendo Alenga wants to speak. If you're here with us, let's take probably a minute or two only so that we can allow as many people as possible to speak. Alenga.
Thanks, Ken, for the opportunity, and thanks, Benji, my good friend, for this opportunity to share on this space. I have been listening keenly, and just a few things to bring to the fore. One, we must wake up to the realization that in this country we have a very hardworking litigation force, like the lawyers who practice in court on a daily basis are very hardworking lawyers. They are very, they read a lot. But on the other side, on the converse, we have a very lazy bench. So when moments come when we are supposed to have a constitutional interpretation of things, we should not really expect too much from that bench. Otherwise, they will always take sides and mislead us and create new quagmires within the law, which are very hard to deal with in future. Matters concerning the impeachment of the DP, it's very simple. That this task of impeaching a DP is a task that has been given to the parliament. And it's very straightforward that a member of parliament shall table a bill. And that has been done. That step has been checked off the board. And after that, then a vote shall be taken, and that vote has been taken. And we have seen the demonstration of 281 persons that this person is unfit for office. And after that, it shall be conveyed to the Senate, which has happened now. So where I find a difficulty is obtaining the place of the court in the impeachment process of a deputy president. Because as far as the law is concerned, especially Article 149, it's very clear that once the Senate dispenses of this matter, then the office of the deputy president stands vacant. And after that, the president has a responsibility within 14 days to appoint someone. And 60 days thereafter, the parliament will do its thing. The small window of opportunity that there exists is litigating against the process. Litigating against the process in the sense that if the DP feels there was unfairness in the process, that's when he can move to court. But as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that is holding on is the issue of public participation. And I think, in my fair interpretation of the law, the place of public participation in the impeachment of a deputy president is a far-fetched concept. And in this sense, I think maybe the parliament did this just for the abundance of caution. But if you read the provisions 2 and 4, there's nowhere it calls for that public participation. Another thing that has been a subject of debate also has been the election of the deputy president and the president as one ticket. It isn't, because one is nominated by their party to vie for presidency, and that person chooses their deputy president. So how then Rigathi Gachagua reached a place of assuming that him and William Ruto are primus inter pares, first among equals, is a very weak interpretation of the law. But then the most important thing we need to ask ourselves as the people of Kenya, we have always fought to bring life to the acts and pieces of this constitution. But then this impeachment, for me, from where I stand, it becomes a very valid point for us to begin breathing life to the constitution, that which was written can actually be actualized someday. But when we come forth and start now sympathizing with the same person that had included us in the conversation of Kenya as a country and Kenya as a concept, then we are losing the point. Deep down our hearts, we know that Gachagua is a bad person in terms of his policy, his mentality, and the way of thinking around nationhood. But then why do we quickly forget that and we come out to sympathize with this person simply because other people around him have committed the same offenses? So in my opinion, we should let this process go on. And when this process goes on, the bigger question is, qui bono, who benefits from this? And what is the benefit for the common person, you and I? The benefit is that for the first time, we will have crossed the Rubicon River in terms of actualizing very strong parts of the Constitution that we think may never be actualized. Look at the article, the entire act on integrity and all that. We have struggled to actualize this conversation of integrity, that we continue to see charlatans in offices, we continue to see criminals in offices, but we will always go round the tribal circle and prevent the law from catching up with these people. So if the law is is for the first time catching up with Gachagua and is going down the guillotine as the first casualty of Article 150, let it be so. And when this happens, it means we have crossed the Rubicon River, and thereafter, any other person, including even the president, including recalling MPs, including even impeaching the Chief Justice and all these other senior people that we think are untouchable, we will have opened that road, and it will be messy, but in the end, it will come to protect and cure the ills that have been befalling this country time and again. So for me, I think this is a moment we have to separate Gachagua from the community. Nobody is impeaching the Gikuyu community. No Gikuyu Community Council of Elders has been called to parliament. It is Gachagua as an individual. If this man was Maasai, the same thing would be happening to him. If this man was Embu, if this man was Luhya, the same thing would be happening to him. So let us separate the man from the tribe. If you look at the list of companies mentioned in the Gachagua charges, there is no company that is mentioned that are being held by the Gikuyu community. All these companies are being held by his children and himself. So all these charges go down to his family. It's not the community. So I think it's time for the Gikuyu community to come out and say, let the law take its course and let the man defend himself. If it comes out, that is fine. But if it doesn't come out, that is okay. But then we cannot put the community as a blackmailing entity, so that everybody that requires to discipline an individual, then the community comes and puts a barricade. If we go that direction, the next time there'll be a Luo in office, the next time there'll be a Kamba in office, and we will not be able to penetrate this tribal wall and discipline people that sit on the other side of the fence that require the discipline. These bad manners of our politics have to be corrected by all the people concerned. And lastly, the doctrine of separation of powers must be fully exercised. If you look at the Constitution, it defines where the court comes in political issues, and that is usually at the resolution of electoral disputes. And that is why no one has ever stood in the way of court in terms of adjudicating contentious elections. Every time that an election has contention, we go to court and we allow court to do that which they are mandated to do. So for this, let them leave the parliament to do what they're supposed to do, and eventually the Senate be allowed to do what they're supposed to do, and so that we can exist in a framework where nobody finds a place to hide. And as it were, if you hear a man singing about his last option, then it means there's something he has done about the last option. So if you hear Gachagua say come from the courts, then it means he has already done something with the courts, and we should be vigilant to that. Then if this stops in the way, will we ever discipline a state officer that qualifies to be disciplined. The things that Gachagua has spoken in this country are completely outrageous. In a sane democracy, in a country where its human beings are sensible enough, Gachagua should not have been in office up to now. This time that he has been in office is actually in excess of his evil behavior. So if the time has come now to carry the cross, let us allow the man to carry the cross. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you very much, Alenga. And please inbox me. I need your number. You need to be on my set, man. You ooze wisdom. Thank you. Just text me. I'll have your number. Then we can interact. Because there's no question, I want to open the floor for Abu Salma. If you're here, Abu, are you here?
Yes, I am.
All right, proceed. And please take the least time possible, but we'll give you time to ventilate and tell us what you think. And if you have a question, you can also ask.
Actually, I have a question and an observation. From the way Gachagua has been leading his defense, I think he has been laying grounds to end up in court.
Labda amelala.
No, sijalala na kusema.
He's here. You're not just loud enough, but we can hear you. Proceed.
Yes, I'm saying from the way Gachagua has been laying his defense, I think he's been planning to end up in court. And from my understanding is that Senate will vote on individual crimes, like the 11 counts, the individual counts, and probably he will remain with one or two that will end up in court. So my question to you, Ken and Benji, is that has this country become too litigious that we keep pushing everything to the courts, even things that should be solved politically or administratively? And therefore, is it a good thing that when our politicians have problems with have oversight issues with their work, they run to court to seek revenge? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abu. I think the law affords everyone that opportunity. I was just looking at Article 47 of the Constitution. How it's resolved, I think that line also needs to be very clear on what can go to court and what can't go to court and what can just be dealt with as an administrative problem and all that. Benji, do you want to take this?
Ken, allow me to confess that Abu, I can only see him, but I cannot hear a thing. I can also hear some feedback on.
Yes, from your end. You are logged to gadgets or something?
No, not at all.
No. I don't know why there's feedback from your end.
Let me just drop off quickly and come back.
Okay. There's feedback. All right. So as we wait for Benji to drop off and come back, Thomas Jagono, you still here? Thomas? All right. There are also other people who have, okay, I'll approve Benji one more time. There are also a number of you who have wanted to contribute to this, but I'd just like to share with our listeners something, especially those who have not been or will not be able to speak. I'd like to share with you what's going to happen going forward, because this is also important in understanding the process. So, how it will play out on Thursday, the Senate, as we all know, will be the trial house, or it's the trial house. So the process, we all know, it will be inquisitive, meaning the Senate will actively seek the establishment of facts in the case from both sides of the divide. So there will be presentation and examination of the evidence for the accuser, who here is Mutuse, and the deputy president, who is the accused. They'll be given an opportunity to present their evidence. Each party can also challenge the evidence that will be provided from the other side, and witnesses will be called to testify, and documents will also be submitted in this case. And we already know a number of witnesses, including the governor of Nairobi is a witness from the prosecution side. And you know, these are quasi-judicial process. Then the 7 senators now, they will act as the jury. They will have additional roles that will go beyond the traditional jury, because this will be, a trial. So senators are will not remain passive observers. They can ask questions to the witnesses. They can seek clarifications if they feel something is not clear on the facts of the case. And the hearing of all the evidence and arguments will be done. The senators will deliberate on what they've had before court, that quasi-judicial process. They'll have to ask questions regarding what has been tabled before them. So when that is concluded, then they can determine the outcome of the impeachment trial. And we all know that it will function as a court. And once the Senate confirms that impeachment, what happens next is they will definitely, the deputy president, if he still feels that he has been removed from office without justification, he is allowed to go to court. So at that point is when we expect to see the deputy president going to court. And just like it has been explained here, the court will examine mostly the process that is that was followed in this trial at the Senate. So if they find that the trial followed the due process, then they can uphold it also. If they find that it fell short, then they will uphold it, the impeachment, and regarding Gachagua can start fighting from outside. I'm also looking at a scenario where it's most likely that even if he is impeached or he is not impeached, there could be Kenyans who could go to court and challenge some of those grounds, like not even gross violation, like the criminal cases. So I'd like to open the floor further to Bernard Mzalendo. Are you here? Bernard Mzalendo?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Can proceed. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to take up the floor. I've been listening to the submissions of the previous speakers. I also want to agree with quite a number, except for those who maybe have the dissenting opinion. Now, my opinion this evening about the impeachment and the court processes, I think I've learned a lot as far as the process is concerned. And maybe I just wanted to make a very quick observation or a quick, I wanted to seek a quick clarification. At the Senate, we know that we have 47 elected senators, and also we have some who are also nominated, I think about 20, making it to be 67 or 66. Now, when it comes to the voting process, because I know after the trial at the Senate, basically the impeachment process will lead to voting by the senators, each and every one of them voting on each and every charges, the 11 charges. So what is the role of these two sides of the Senate, the senators, the elected and the nominated? Do they all vote? And if in that case they do, then where does it place the deputy president in terms of the numbers that he might need, so as to maybe pull a surprise in terms of, making the Senate not to impeach him? How many senators is he going to need at the Senate? And from your side, as Kenny Jung or maybe Benji Ndolo, I know you must have analyzed this whole process very critically, and you can tell what numbers does he have. Is it possible? Is there any possibility that the deputy president can really evade the impeachment process at the Senate with the numbers that you can see maybe aligning to his side? Or definitely we cannot know exactly, but we can predict, going by the political formations in the Senate, and maybe how the political leaders are speaking outside, you can tell that probably maybe those from Kambani, the senators from Kambani, for instance, would vote in on the side of the deputy president. Those maybe from the ODM side and the Kenya Kwanza will actually support the impeachment motion and the rest of it. Where are we in terms of the numbers? Is he close to the numbers? Is he not? Otherwise, the whole process, I know, will be guided actually by the Senate, because even though it's something that is coming up the first time in Kenya, but there must have been some jurisprudence elsewhere, or maybe elsewhere there must have been. Like I know there is one in the United States and the rest of the other places that they can refer to. So that is a question maybe I wanted maybe to get a response to.
Okay. There are lawyers here. I'm a lawyer too, so I'll try and give it a brief take, then Benji can also give it his take.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one, I think the Senate has 47 plus, about 20 nominated, a total of elected who are 47. Now my take is this, 47 will vote. However, Senate also has the nominated members who are also representing delegations. So there's delegation for the youth, for example. That voice needs to be heard. They need to take a vote. There's delegation from the persons able differently. That delegation has to vote. There's a delegation from women. That delegation has to vote. So my take is all the 67 senators will have a vote. Now, anyone can contradict me or help me explain this. Secondly, my take is this. The deputy president does not need numbers in the Senate except numbers to frustrate the passing of this motion. So what does he need? He only needs 23 or 24. If he gets 24 on his side, then they will not get the 2/3 because the threshold must be met of all the senators, in my opinion, all the 67. So he must get at least 23 or 24 senators on his side in order to frustrate this vote. Now you asked again if his numbers add up. I'm thinking the only way to know this is look at how many counties are from his region. Count the number of counties. Are they 6? Are they 8? Are they 4? If they vote in his favor, then go to Kalonzo Musyoka, who said that Wiper will stand with the deputy. Count the number of senators that have been sponsored to the Senate by Kalonzo Musyoka's party. Add them to the number of senators from that region, get that number. Are they 2, 3, or 4? Add those numbers. Then go to Eugene Wamalwa, DAPK, who has also said that he will stand with the DP regarding Gachagua. Count the number of people he's sponsoring to the Senate through DAPK. Apart from that, look for ODM, for example, who have said they are impartial in this. How many delegations are they sending to the Senate? Add all those numbers, plus friends who have been working with the deputy president. That is the only way to see or to know how many people can be on his side. He only needs about 24. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me to frustrate that vote. So yes, I think all of them, 67, will vote. And as I have explained, that is how we can determine how many people will be on his side or not. I think, Benji, you can also take this question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate, especially this band of questions has been very impressive, starting with my own friend, Alenga Torres-Dex. Most people, it's a German name. Most people avoid saying that name. Alenga has made a lot of very salient points, asserting that, the bench is a lazy bench. This, again, points to the topic, Ken, we began with, about the importance of jurisprudence. What he's saying is that the bench just acts haphazardly. You don't have a certain guiding philosophy or principle that would make a predictable outcome on any issue before the court. That's how come you see an errant governor, a looting governor sometimes go and get reprieve from the court, therefore misuse of courts, etc. That is really an unfortunate development. Alenga also talks about Parliament's role in indeed that is a constitutional role. It is a role that is very clearly spelled out in the different articles on the procedures for removal of a president or a deputy president. He talks about public participation as an additive, really, and this, I think, spoke volumes to the fact that Parliament didn't want to be accused of being elitist, of refusing to hear the voice of the people, and so public participation was done. But let me also point out that public participation should be heckling. Public participation should not be madness. Public participation should not be about posturing. We must get, as we talk about political culture in this country, we must get to a point where people come and exercise their different freedom of expressions with a lot of responsibility and with a lot of information, not just to come there to chant, to throw chairs, to to mete out violence against those who don't agree with your position or your point. And what Alenga has gone on to say finally is that Gachagua is not the community and that Gachagua is a bad man. We must also get in the culture and the habit of this country of calling a spade and not a big spoon. And so I commend this young man for actually coming out so clearly on this issue. On Abu, I had a technicality where I didn't really hear. And maybe as I go to the next point, allow me, Ken, to just define once again for the audience that the Senate sitting during an impeachment trial functions similarly to a court. This is the constitutional makeup of our Constitution 2010, that the Senate is a quasi-judicial body, therefore it adopts the procedures that are absolutely similar in design and in function to a court. And so when a court process is already going on and the accused is thinking of rushing and shopping around, 20-something times to another court, then what does that say about the accused? Is there a judge he's trying to buy? Is there a defined, outcome that he's seeking? Is he anticipating that the Senate is a bad place? And we all know from our short 14-year history that the Senate has been actually quite the upper and responsible house, that senators will sit calmly and look at the adduced evidence and will come to a conclusion that is for all intents and purposes, a reasonable conclusion. That is my expectation. Now, for those who followed me for a long time, just respond to Bernard Mzalendo, who raised the last issue, and then we can touch on Governor Sakaja, Ken. I will tell Bernard Mzalendo, and I think he follows me on Twitter, that I know how to get information. That's why I do the work that I do in advocacy. My expectation, and I want to be on the record for this, is several things. Number one, there are no flower girls in the Senate. All senators will vote. The senators that represent counties and those that represent special needs, different constituencies, Ken, as you pointed out, all senators will vote. My prediction, and I like doing predictions for general elections, for Kenya, for other countries, looking at political dynamics, looking at arguments, looking at the issues, my expectation is that DP Gachagua at best will get 9 senators and 58 will vote to remove. Now, having made that prediction, and this is on the record, this is also a recorded space, I would like to point out the conduct of the senators from Ukambani. It is very clear that these are senators acting under instructions. I would also urge the media to be very responsible. How? It is only a few months ago, at the height of Gachagua'S misbehavior and balkanization of the country, the state of Kenya, where he was separating Kenyans or of the mountain from the rest of Kenyans. It is Kalonzo who said on record, and all media houses have this footage, that he has never even met Gachagua, that he doesn't understand this man who is bastardizing the office and bringing such dishonor and disrepute to the institution of the presidency. Kalonzo himself, who has been a vice president in this country, has now very quickly moved to Gachagua. That cannot be on principle. Gachagua, it is said, has resources, so you have to ask, is it money some of these people are looking for? And these politicians must be called out for this kind of misconduct. We cannot say that I cannot call out someone because he's my tribe, because he's my friend, because he's my what. the senators from Ukambani are acting on instruction, and it is wrong. They are seeking to build political alliances based on tribal allegiance, that he can put into a basket the Kikuyu and the Kamba, and that can make a tribal force. We must call it out and spell it out that that is wrong and it cannot be right. Finally, Ken, as we continue, Governor Sakaja is going to adduce evidence in the Senate. Now, the governor is on record fighting with the DP Gachagua in public, on Twitter, exchanging messages and what have you. What Gachagua is accused of is he sits in cabinet, they make a collective decision as cabinet that we cannot continue to have the situation with hawkers or the situation with Marikiti, that markets need to be orderly and need to be moved in a certain way and well organized for proper operation of the city, for movement of people and of traffic. You have hawkers on pavements, you have complete madness around Marikiti, etc. Right after a cabinet decision, Gachagua will go out, and then presumably most of the hawkers are the enterprising Kikuyu community. So he will go and incite them, speaking the Kikuyu language in the CBD. Now the question then begs, Ken, from that kind of behavior, what are other Kenyans, because Kenya is a country of 42 communities and 42 tribes, what are they to make of this? If a deputy president comes out of cabinet where a collective decision has been made and then goes on to incite the public and to incite his own community. And then when asked, the deputy president says that he took Sakaja, the young man, around Nairobi to kitafuta kura. So he's justifying his tribal behavior by saying, allow me to do this because I brought the president votes and I brought the governor votes. And I'm telling Kenyans once again, and we all know that this is true, that this conduct is unpalatable. This conduct is unacceptable. This is division of the country. This is abuse of office in really its terrible form. That you are blocking accountability, you are balkanizing communities, putting communities against each other, undermining the presidency, contradicting cabinet. Why should you even be there? This is really not something that should be a big argument. But again, I am kind of predicting the debate. Let us allow the debate to play out. But I can absolutely forecast that, Ken, this is part of the things that will come out in the Senate, which will be a long trial. And then the senators finally, might I add, will act as jury. Let us have standards as not apply selective justice as well as selective amnesia. Gachagua is wrong for what he has been doing. He is absolutely wrong. He's been called out by leaders like Honorable Raila, who had asked the president about some 6 months ago, to censure his own deputy president. Kalonzo had also done the same, but as the winds continued changing and they started seeing maybe an opportunity to build a tribal political base, then alliances shifted. But those alliances are superficial alliances. They're not built on solid ground. They are not built on principle. They have no sustainable philosophy. And so they, like any house that is built on sand, that is not built on solid ground, they shall be swept away and into the sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. But I'd also want just to point out that the deputy president, Kalonzo Musyoka, and all those guys, regardless of the feeling that it's a tribal alliance or something, and trying to benefit from another man's meat, it doesn't matter. Article 38 of the Constitution allows them to associate. So whichever way they want to do it, that's it. The day or the time someone will answer this question for me, and I'm going to open the mics, that this relationship has broken down irrecoverably. Can a court of law, because this is the substance of our discussion tonight, can a court of law intervene to force them to be together? And really, nothing stops us from debating this thing out of the Senate. I mean, we're not senators. They will have their time. We Kenyans will speak until the cows come home, and that is what we do. But the senators, they can desist from debating it outside, but us will talk about it. So I'd like someone to answer that question. Can the court of law force these two gentlemen, the deputy president and the president, regardless of what's happening, to work together? So someone sent me a complete breakdown of how this voting will look like. I'd just like to share with you. So the composition of the Senate is this. There are elected members, 47, from each county, each of the 47 counties, nominated at 20,000. There are nominated senators are as this: 16 are 2 are youth, 1 male, 1 female, and 2 are persons with disability, 1 male and 1 female. Now, all senators, the 67 of them, are eligible to take a vote. 2/3 of majority, if you look for 2/3 of 67, is 44.6. Now that's 6, let's round it off, they become 45. So what happens is that the senators, to pass this, we must count 45 of them voting in the Thursday trial. So 45 must vote. So in order for this vote not to go through, just subtract 45 from 67. So regarding Gachagua, just needs 23. Just 23. If he has 23 senators on his side, Benji says 9 at most, then this vote will not sail through. I guess this has answered the question of Bernard conclusively, and the rest of the listeners tonight. I'd like to open the mic further. I see real Jaylene. The Jaylene silent. If you're here, we'll give you a minute because we have only about 30 minutes to close. So we'll give you a minute. Then after Jaylene, we'll give Alex Kimechwa, then the government guardian, then Felix Momanyi will close for us. Then we can come back and sum it off. So let's begin with Jaylene. If you have a question, you can also direct it to me or to Benji.
Thank you very much, Benji. Thank you very much, Mjungu. And Alenga, thank you very much for your insight, because we all will speak the uncomfortable truth, and we have to really hit the nail on the head. Our VP has had bad manners, and we cannot lie about that. But what I'm getting shy of is the behavior in the parliament. That is what rings a bell. Are we sorting out political scores? Are we sorting out a family problem wrangle? Or we are sorting out governance issues? This guy is being charged on lack of performance and service delivery. And then the division. So if we are going to highlight anything, my point of view would be, we stick to the points, but we don't enter into family wrangles, we don't enter into personal matters, and then we're digging you like we're enchanting you. So if we're going to have a parliament that is going to be in bed with sorting political scores, then we are heading to the wrong direction. And as Alenga has highlighted out, we need to be able to come to terms to the fact that we can actually impeach a leader that is not doing the service delivery. So if we stick to the point and the facts, then you're becoming factual. But if you're going to divert and then you're going to personal issues, then you're personalizing, and it means you're sorting out a political score. So Ben and Benji, you replied and said you're going to be very factual. You're very factual, but can we shy off from the family wrangles and then we deal with the governance and deal with this guy in terms of lack of service delivery and the delusion that is having that I brought you into this, so that we can get this leeway that is making even some MPs think that they cannot be impeached, because this is a discussion that we have to have, such that these leaders, they know that they're serving Kenyans, they're not serving individual basis, but it's turning to the direction that you're serving an individual. If we allow that, meaning that you're sending us back to dictatorship, we left that direction long way back. So let's discuss the factual facts and the uncomfortable truth so that you can hit the nail on the head and face the bullet by the horn. That's my insight. And thank you, Mjungo, for the space. Thank you, Benj.
Asante sana, and make sure next weekend you tune. We'll find another topic, and remember the impeachment shall have taken place, or he shall be saved, or he will go home. So we'll also hold another assembly next week. Be real. That's you. Okay. Next is Alex Kimechwa. Alex, if you're here.
I'm here.
Yes, proceed.
I think I would like to agree with most of the sentiments by the speakers here. I think one of the greatest problems that Gachagua found himself is that he forgot that he's a deputy president. I think he thinks he's a co-president, and he wants to probably rally his community to blackmail the president. I think this is really very unfortunate. To have such a person as the deputy president. As for me, this impeachment is actually very good for democracy of a country. I think we will form a presidents within the region, and I really support it. I would like the impeachment to go into its own conclusion. And I mean, very interesting times ahead. We're looking forward to see what will happen. I think that's my contribution.
All right, thank you. That is a point we discussed last weekend. If you are here, you realize we spoke to it last weekend. Next, the government's guardian, if you're here.
Yes, Ken Mijungu, thank you for this opportunity, for allowing me to air my sentiments. And in all this process, I think it's also interesting to see, the behavior of Kenyans themselves when we are discussing the whole of this impeachment process. And I think it is really sad to see that there are people who are actually very ready to defend this man, Rigathi Gachagua. I mean, his behavior has been nothing short of preaching ethnicity. And in every part that he visits, he tends to speak for a community, even to an extent of, gatekeeping the community. Actually, for somebody that comes from that region that Gachagua tends to, to represent, I think they can also see that this guy is really separating them, from the whole nation and putting them in some position where he can use them for his own political ambitions. And I think this is a man who is just scavenging for political power, having sensed that, for the many other reasons, we know this government may be becoming unpopular in one way or the other, and is trying, by all means to separate itself from the failures of this government. And in doing that, he has jeopardized the constitution of this country, because for a man to sit comfortably in cabinet where decisions are made and agreed, and then come outside to distance themselves from the decisions of the cabinet, I think that is very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. And whichever way anyone wants to look at it, it is very inhuman. Even when we, for example, talk about the case of the people in Nairobi that were encroaching the riparian land, I think during the floods, people lost lives there. People lost lives, and I think as a decision to prevent such damage in future, the government decided to move the people, and only for the deputy president to come out later and address the same people, and even worse, in a vernacular language. I think this is the man that I can say it was the president's mistake in the first place. And looking at it politically, I think I can say with conviction that he is correcting his mess, because even before the 2022 elections, we see that this was a man of a little experience with respect to national politics. I think he is overexcited about the position, and that is why he's had to behave the way he has. And even looking at his defense approach to the whole matter, we see that he's going for the loopholes. He's looking at the process of the impeachment, whether he can find some loopholes that might save him. Even when he had a platform to defend himself against the accusations, he did it from a political approach where he gets a video of the president talking from a different context and, puts it as his defense. So even at a point where he is supposed to defend himself, I don't think he has done so. He has only compared situations, if you ask me. So I think the deputy president should just pack and go. And this is actually a very good moment in the history of this nation, because the Constitution is continuing to set the bar high for leadership in this country, and especially the leadership at the level of the presidency. rows have been, rolling, heads have been rolling with respect to devolution. The governors have been feeling it. And it is good to see now that the Constitution is making a stride further, and we are at the level of the presidency. We can only hope for the best at this point. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Felix Momanyi. Then we can weigh in if we can have a few more speakers, because there's about 13 people waiting to speak. So Felix, if you can make it short so that we can see if we can add more people.
Good evening, viewers. I'm sorry that I've joined this discussion very late in the day, and I've listened to the sentiments of speakers who have contributed, and I must say that we are in a Damascus moment in the history of this country. The impeachment of the Deputy President, Gachagua'S. My view is that the Deputy President knows where this impeachment motion is going to end. But I've listened to Speaker Benji Ndolo and very few speakers or other speakers speak. And there has been a harsh judgment. We have been so quick to condemn the Deputy President. The allegations that have been raised, if you look at the allegations, we have like 11 issues that have been raised against the Deputy President, and he justifiably gave answers to those allegations. Now, in my following of this discussion, I have not heard our speakers comment on those issues. I believe that there are very fundamental issues that needs to be addressed even as we go to the Senate. The 11 allegations that have been raised against the Deputy President have been not addressed in this space. So I want to urge members that as we contribute to this motion, let us look critically at the 11 allegations that have been raised against the Deputy President, so that we may be able to come to a just and fair conclusion. Now, I've listened to the argument that maybe courts are so biased. The courts maybe he has people in courts, but my thinking should be, one, if you look at the numerous applications that have been filed before the courts have been shy, and they have not given injunctive orders to stop any motions, any discussions on the ongoing process. So before we even now blame the courts on giving, before we even blame the courts, let us allow mature, concrete discussions on the allegations that have been raised against the Deputy President. There are so many allegations that have been forwarded or raised against the Deputy President. What we are doing is just sugarcoating the issues. Now, if you look at all those allegations that have been raised against the Deputy President, we are being told, oh, he is insubordinate, he's not, there are cabinet resolutions that he's not complying with, etc., etc. You can't remember the current president now, William Ruto, has been accused of doing the same thing. In fact, the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, in his defense in Parliament, produced videos to substantiate the allegations that have been leveled against him. That is a discussion that is not in this space. What we are saying, my view, that one, the deputy president maybe is not desirous of becoming a president of the Republic of Kenya, but his aim in fighting this impeachment process is to show Kenyans that you can fight any other allegation that has been brought before you to the end. So I would want, as we contribute to this motion, one, let us look at the 11 allegations that were brought against the deputy president, internalize, so that we may be able to come to a just and fair conclusion. That is my contribution. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Felix. I see a lot of people asking us to extend the hours of this discussion. It was supposed to be 2 hours, but a lot of people have just joined. So I will say this, we are at over 550 people who are listening to this. If in the next 30 minutes we don't fall below those numbers, then I would gladly extend this to my detriment until 11 p.m. tonight. So Felix, thank you. More mics, the real Joe, you will go first, and please take the least time possible. Then we have Redemptor Wikali, Grace Olwande, all of you back to back. Let's listen to you. We've discussed this for the last 2 hours. Let's listen to what you have to say. So we begin with the real Joe. Sorry, I was watching monitor on the other side also what's happening. But let's begin with the real Joe. Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken and Benji. One thing I would like to say, first of all, is removal of deputy president is a constitutional process, unlike most of us would like to call it a political process. It is clearly stipulated in our constitution, Article 150. So that is a constitutional process, but it is such a weighty matter. But for me, I always like to refer to leadership in our country with Article 10 and 73 of our constitution. Article 73 talks about responsibility of leadership, and if you're holding a role such as deputy president of our country, you're supposed to be principal assistant to the president. And the president is symbol of national unity. So if it is perceived that you are causing division, that is not, we don't need 11 grounds to impeach you just because of that. I mean, we all know that from Article 10, national values and principles of governance, we know patriotism, national unity. And we also know that Article 10 is one of those articles that cannot be amended only through a referendum. So it is such a serious article in our constitution. We don't even need to talk about corruption or all those 11 charges. If it is perceived that you are not anywhere bringing our nation together and you are the deputy president, you deserve impeachment. I also wish to say that it is a democratic process, and I would wish to see an impeached deputy president. I've always said this. Then that way, I am sure we can see an impeached president in future. And that way, and I'm so happy that the members of parliament voted 282 of them. This gives me hope that after all this is done, we, the people of Kenya, can exercise, can invoke Article 119 and petition the same members of parliament to review the conduct of the president, Article 95, because they have shown us it is possible for them to review the conduct of the deputy president. I'm so happy that they have done so in large numbers. We will then petition them as Article 119 for them to review the conduct of the president as well. As to Ken, I heard you talk about if the court of law can intervene because like the relationship between the deputy president and the president is done. I mean, if all those grounds are considered, and the most important is violation of our constitution, not even the relationship between the president and the deputy president. The most important, if it is something to do with relationship, I think things like NIC, the national cohesion, can handle those. But when it is matters the constitution, violation of our constitution, nothing can save you. Having said all that, we are made by history. And this goes well in our history. So if it goes down, we have had an annulled presidential election. It makes our country, it has made our country, it has improved our electoral process. If we have an impeached deputy president, That is part of our history. It will make us. So that is all I can say for now. Let's just have this done. But also, we wish that the National Assembly, also when we petition them to review the conduct of the president, we wish that they do so in large numbers as they have done. That's all I can say for now. Thank you.
Great. I've always also said that let's see how this process ends and let's begin the other one. It shall be a possibility. When 2017 happened, if I'm not wrong, no one knew that it was possible that 2017 could happen at the Supreme Court. Then it happened. And then there was so much expectations in 2022. And then it didn't happen. And we had all that ruling of hot air and the rest. So let it happen so that we know this can happen. And it sets very good precedents. So thank you, The Real Joe, J.K. Cabetes, Redemptor Mutali. Benji, you want to say something before we go to Redemptor?
Yeah, before we accumulate too many, let me react very, very briefly. I can see the numbers are rising. Yeah, so that we don't accumulate too many issues. Let me start from, again, the last going back up. Real Joe, he asserts that this is a political process. Correct. That Article 10 and Article 73 are the most important fundamental articles. Agreed. That is actually was my argument in our first space, where I was saying that Article 10 defines, in principle, what it is to, to have a republic, the conduct of a public officer, of a state officer in office, the honor that they bring to the office or the dishonor to their office, and the expectation by that definition. I found an interesting article here as I'm looking at Article 150. I've easily gone to 152, which defines cabinet, and I'm just going to read this for our audience, some of who are actually, I'm seeing SMSs here, some are even in college and high schools, etc., Form 4s. Each person appointed as a cabinet secretary, and remember the deputy president sits in cabinet and superintends over actions of the cabinet, assumes office by swearing or affirming faithfulness to the people and the Republic of Kenya and obedience to this constitution before the president and in accordance with the third schedule. Now, this is a very important text, Ken, because just imagine if someone who is under you, because in protocol and in rank, the CS is right under the deputy president, and they are expected to swear an oath and have affirm faithfulness to the people of the Republic of Kenya and obedience to the constitution. Just imagine how unfit Gachagua is if the people right in cabinet right under him are expected to behave in this way, and he is behaving contrary. In fact, I pause it, and hereby I go to Brian Kipkiru before I respond to Felix Momanyi. Gachagua has been preaching ethnicity. That is a statement of fact. He's scavenging, having sensed defeat. And I want to submit on this space that the only reason Gachagua was not summoned by the NCIC is because of the high office he holds. Why this is an important submission to me is because it demonstrates further how Gachagua is abusing office. He's using the office to shield himself as a Kikuyu tribalist, now beyond the reach of institutions that are there for accountability out of respect for the presidency. That's the only reason he has been summoned by the NCIC. And therefore, as Kipkirui asserts, the Constitution sets the bar high. The Constitution does not expect that a deputy president can behave in this manner. And so I am consistent in my calling for the removal of the deputy president, of this particular deputy president. Felix Momanyi says it is harsh. He would like to know the 11 charges against the DP. I respond and say that, as with everything, it goes down to the character of a person. The charges, as will be revealed and read out in the Senate, will show what we have had discussed in the National Assembly. And sometimes just because you don't like the messenger doesn't make the message to be a bad message. We are hearing allegations of a man with a very vindictive streak and a very dark heart, somebody who has found it very difficult to work with anybody across government, somebody who is undermining decisions of cabinet, somebody who is undermining his boss, who is using resources to foment anger and foment opposition within government to government policy, someone who, I dare say, has even tried to overthrow the government. And therefore, If Rigiji has no desires of becoming a president, he just wants to fight and fight, then let him fight, but don't let him fight at the expense of development projects and development agenda for the people of Kenya. That is just as simple as that he must be allowed to leave and to go and fight outside. Alex Kimetra, quickly, Ken, as we respond, so we can give the mic to more attendees to submit. Gachagua thinks he's a co-president and forgot he's a DP. This is absolutely accurate. That the behavior of the deputy president did not fit the comportment, the requisite comportment of a deputy president who constitutionally is a principal assistant to the president. This government has a lot of issues defining and showing what they have done in such big things as the digital space, as for the 5 pillars, actually the digital economy, okay, affordable housing, SHA, SHIF, JKI, and all the perceived scandals and allegations. So an assistant is busy fighting his boss, whereas there are all these things that are keeping, presumably, the president up at night, while the deputy president is ring fencing Mount Kenya while dividing the country. Can you just imagine any other reason that he would need to be there? How? He is not doing his job. He's not assisting his boss. He's entitled, allegedly demanding money. We all live in Kenya. We know that it is not, inconceivable in the least. And so you wonder, what is the point of fighting on? Finally, Jaylene. Jaylene says, avoid entering family wrangles. That is an interesting observation to me, Jaylene. You know why? Because let us say, for instance, that the family, their provider and their patriarch is now deceased. The person that they're up against is actually the number 2 in the country. Let us just say, for argument's sake, that Gachagua is mistreating them, that Gachagua is exploiting them, that Gachagua is disinheriting them. Where are they to seek justice when they have financial issues, when he has influence? We saw in the evidence that this is a deputy president who can pick up the phone and call the CEO of KEMSA and ask him questions on a tender that he has sent his son to pursue. And the CEO will actually pick the phone, and the effect of that is not the same as me and you calling the CEO of KEMSA pursuing a tender. This is gross abuse of office. So it is not inconceivable that he's also harassing his own family members in regards to inheritance and such like issues. Jaylene, apart from just moving to the courts, why should someone who has a bullhorn and who has access to information refuse to speak up for the voiceless? If it happened to you, Jaylene, wouldn't you want people like us, people like Ken Mijungu, who run shows, who are in media, who can write articles in newspapers, who can dig and find information, wouldn't you like them to speak on your behalf, and wouldn't you like them to shine a spotlight where impunity is happening because there is darkness? Finally, she says that MPs should not be settling scores. MPs will always settle scores. I agree that it should not be on public dime at the expense of the public, but let us not prejudge the process. Let us allow the political process to play out. Let us allow Gachagua to move forward and defend himself. Let us allow also the evidence to come out all in its entirety, so that Kenyans can be more in the know, and the people in Mashinani, from the mountain and from across the board to the lake, to the rift, to everywhere, to Northeastern, can know the deputy president for what he is. Thank you. Let's take more views and more questions. I can see the numbers are continuing to rise. As we get tired, right at the 1 minute to the end of this space, I think Ken will be forced, as you said, to extend it.
Yeah, Benji. I think this is a service to us Kenyans, so we'll extend it as much as we can, but also not keep people up for so long. So I'd given the mic to Redempta, if I'm not wrong, Grace, then the government's guardian, Kip Kirui. You are supposed to go. Are you here? Kip Kirui? Okay.
Oh, let me drop off. Sorry.
Okay, you're still here. Oh, sorry. So let's do Redemption, then we do Grace, then we can do Professor Fred Simiu, then Batabella Ronald, and then Titus. So in that order, if you have questions, you can also direct it. Let's begin with Redemption if you're here.
Good evening to the host and co-host. Thank you for hosting us. I don't know if I can match Benji's passion on this subject. And Ken, you've said after the impeachment or not, or saving of a case, this is going to be a topic for the next 2 years. So the question I pose is, when will he get service as citizens? Benji is very passionate about this because I get the feeling that he knows the players very well. But to be honest, you went back in time and played what you just said, played it back word for word, would be describing Gachagua'S boss. The same things you're describing would be in 2020 when they had a falling out with Uhuru. It will be the same script. And so the question I ask is, people want to talk the legalese, they want to talk about the constitution, the implication, but the question is, isn't this telling us that we can survive without a deputy president? Because we saw the emergence of two groups, Tanga, and one group ran around the country calling those jamas, serikali ya nusu mkate, whatever they were calling it last time, handshake. And now we are in the back place. 2 years, exactly 2 years, or even 1 year into the swearing in of the other time. The worst thing about this is Kenyans can be likened to parents who are fighting and they're in an abusive relationship and the children are malnourished, they are not getting their rights met because these parents are just fighting over who takes what. And that has been going on until the reset button was almost pressed by the agencies. Now, I've heard you mention about if we were the children of the late governor, wouldn't you want people with strong voices to speak for them? But we're speaking for all the Kenyans who've been disinherited, who've been mistreated, who have a force so mighty they cannot speak up. Why would we take that same passion for one family and not think about the millions of families in Kenya today who don't know where the next bill will come from, who do not know if their children will go to school? Secondly, when you talk about the rearrangement of the senators, for example, and we mentioned senators from Eastern, maybe we should just put the senators of ODM versus the senators of Wiper. And why the double standards? Because after the Gen Z revolt, they regrouped and Raila's lot came to the government. Now they've left the deputy outside. So let's go to the allegations. I'm not even going to the charges being leveled against the deputy president. I'm just asking a question. He told us when they came into power that people carried money from treasury in wheelbarrows. People are coming and telling us that the deputy president attempted to overthrow the government. Don't we have the rule of law? If these things have really happened, then that was treason. People died in that attempt. And again, when they came to power, they said the previous people carried. So I think the passion we are putting is the Kenyan citizens are collateral damage. It could be a legal process, it could be a constitutional process, but it is more of a political process because now we are seeing the MPs, people died in Tana River, 19 people died in Tana River. And what is making headlines? Who might become the next deputy president? The names that are being dropped in the docket of the person who's supposed to tell us what has happened to. So who serves Kenyans? Because we are at the mercy of the fights that have been going on for the last 10 years. When every time the president has a falling out with his deputy, who suffers? It is the citizens. And we are now just about getting worked up again to start talking about them. When will they serve Kenyans? Because this is now making headlines from when the other week we were the Reva Kufa Magakanga public participation. Who pays for that? Even those public participations that were not necessary. Because it appears they had the numbers, they would have done this. They were just trying to tick a box that we had public participation. The number of people who are questioned is neither here nor here. It doesn't meet the standards of statistics. So I find it's unfair that we are going to talk about this and we cannot help but talk about it. But at whose expense? It is at the expense of the Kenyans who will not get service. Because people are rearranging themselves. I can see now there's going to be, and then the hatred. We are getting polarized. Last time we were polarized against 2 blocks. Then came hustler blocks, polarized us again. Right now people are getting worked up and saying 40 against 1. When will we have a chance just to be Kenyans and not be held hostage by politics? Surely Moi alituambia siasa mbaya maisha mbaya. We are living it for the last, I think, 20 or 15 years. Those are my submissions. I'm sorry I've gotten out of this. We are seeing people going to courts. There are so many litigations. There are so many cases. If we had goodwill, we will not even need all these cases. We will not be questioning deals done by Adani this, Adani that. We will not be questioning why are we changing service providers and paying for a service and exaggerating. It is our responsibility. Anybody who has a voice now to start crying for the disinherited Kenya. Because when you sell, passion yangu pia imenipeleka mbali. Thank you Mijungu and Benji for the opportunity to speak up. It is unfair to Kenya.
You make sense. Before you drop off, Mwikali, I'd like to ask you a question. Everything is political. Even religion is political. That's why you see all these churches fighting for leadership, and they campaign and they look for votes from their congregants. Everything in this country, even our own finance bill, is political. Everything is pure politics in this country. Would you rather we don't sort out this political process so that it lingers, it remains? Because what the preposition I'm getting from you is that we are being, our Kenyans have been left to their own device, people politic, and rearrange their political cards. So what would you rather, just briefly, as I go to Grace?
We have to fix the political problem. But yes, we are not going to fix it in this script that has not worked for the last 15 years. This script has refused to work. And then secondly, anybody who fights for social justice has no chance when the political is in this mess, because we are picking people from downstream and we are not coming upstream to say, unless we fix it up here, we have no chance. So it has to be fixed, but not in their favor. Asanteni.
Okay. It has to be fixed, but not to at our expense, to their favor. Thank you so much, Redemptor. And remember, good people, next weekend also 8 p.m. we'll be hosting this. There'll be other issues. Remember, Senate would have done its thing, so we'll definitely be hosting another space. Don't forget to tune in next week on Sundays 8 p.m.
Can I read a tweet here?
Yes. So Benji, I know you want to say something, but I'd like to finish. Grace has been holding for a long time. Grace, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please proceed.
Thank you.
And go to Benji before we come to other speakers.
Thank you for hosting us, for the co-host and the host. And for me, I want to give my honest view about the process that Gachagua is facing right now. Personally, I feel that even the public participation was compromised. The reason is I saw it was advertised and there was a form in the newspaper that was last week but one. This form was written in English. So precisely it wanted you to tick what you want and also tick the allegations. So I'm asking, could my grandmother do that? Definitely no. So what did we see? We saw, according to the parliament, only 200,000 people completed the process. But now here again comes my question. How many Kenyans decided even not to attend the public participation because they felt it is irrelevant? And another thing, I feel politicians are taking us for a ride. And the good thing is right now, people are serious about real issues. And this is one thing that the government has not realized yet. You see, if we people of Kenya, we contribute taxes for what? We want good governance. And also we want accountability. How many governors have been impeached? So many. we have had a situation whereby these governors are impeached, but they don't face the law. They are not taken to court. They are not. They don't face charges of stealing money. We also find politicians who have stolen money come with sympathy and look for votes again from Kenyans. So people like Obado, they stole from Kenyans, but they are at home scot-free. We don't see any court processes going through. We don't see them returning public funds. So I'm wondering what will happen to Gachagua after he's impeached. Will he go, if the government is claiming he is a thief, he has stolen our money, he has misused public resources. I want to see him go to jail, and I want to see him return Kenyans' money. Number two. Lastly, I don't want to take much of your time. Lastly, I think Gachagua have been doing this since he was elected. And if I remember correctly, that the reason why I'm seeing this thing political, it's not honest that politicians want Gachagua gone because of those reasons. It is a question of loyalty. Gachagua is no longer loyal to his boss. That's why the boss wants him gone. But if we look at Gachagua, right from the day of inauguration, we could tell what he's speaking to. Why was he not being condemned those days? Why wait until now? And if, for me, I went for those mandamanos and I was not called by Gachagua to go there. I went there because I felt the finance bill as a Kenyan who pays tax is heavy on me. So I want to give you an example with the UK. In the UK, they collect 40% of income of every citizen. In Kenya, with the recent taxations that we have, they collect at least 35 to 38% of our income. But if you look at the results, is the government giving us what we want? Definitely not. In the UK, if I go to the hospital, it will be free. If I have a kid, I will take that child to best schools and it's for free, paid by the government. So I think politicians still don't know what we want. So basically, we don't care about Gachagua, whether he goes home or not. We care about our money. We want our money returned. Number one. Number two, we don't care which tribe becomes the deputy president. We don't care. What we want to see is leaders who are working for the benefit of Kenyans. So leaders should just stop this hypocrisy of wasting our time all the time with nonsense. That is all I can say.
Thank you, and I agree with you. We should not be sidetracked. Thank you, Grace, so much. And I like your preposition, and this is a lot of people who think like that this thing should not just end here. If it's true that the government knows that Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, has been doing business with this country, and they truly and honestly believe that this has been illegal, and they truly believe that it is in contravention of the Constitution, then if they impeach him, if we don't see them going to court, then we need to ask them hard questions. Was this PR? Was it public gimmick? Were you settling political scores by bringing all these charges, and yet you know they can't stand in court? So I agree with you, Grace. If this happens, then some of these charges that attract criminal sanctions must be taken to court so that we know that indeed these guys were honest, not just expediency at this particular point. So thank you so much. Professor Fred Simiyu, if you're here. Professor Fred? Okay, Professor Fred is not here. I'll be giving more mics. Titus Nakil, as I give more mics. If you're here, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Mijingu and the co-host. Okay, I'm Titus Nakil.
Titus, okay. Just called me like Kishunga calls me Mijingu.
Oh, Mijingu, sorry. I think that's what is written here. Okay, let me bring my point very honestly. Number one, I just want to ask this question and then it will be answered later. Who will benefit when the deputy president will impeach? Are we Kenyans going to benefit or not? That's the first question we have to answer ourselves. Secondly, in my view, I think our National Assembly is compromised. Number one, personally, I attended the GSC protest on 25th of June. I was not told by anybody. The only thing that I thought, it was about the taxation of the nation. The parliamentarians who impeached the deputy president are the one who passed that law saying that it's good. Yet, these are the people that we elected them to go and represent our views. And that's what the deputy president, in fact, said today in Embu, that these people are not listening to our views as common mwananchi. We have very serious things that we are supposed to be discussing as a nation through the National Assembly. Number one, we do not have the IEBC. I think those are the things that the parliamentarians should be thinking of, not about the impeachment of the deputy president, which will not benefit me or you, who is in this platform now. Secondly, the higher education fund, which was rejected by the courts. Those are the things. I'm a student now, I'm currently learning. Some students are complaining, hell by the ingia kwa systems out. Lakini tuko na time ya kukaa mpaka saa 2 ya usiku tukisema patriots were impeaching the deputy president. Thirdly, they are done a thing. Yesterday, the minister for CS, Opio Andai, says that they have signed a contract with the Adani deal about the 75 billion Kenya shillings for a contract of Kentraco. So that is a V2, surely. So, the last thing that I will talk about is about the National Assembly. I think there is an article in the Constitution that the Kenyan and the sovereign of people is the highest. And I think we don't have a National Assembly now because it's compromised. I heard, in fact, they are started talking about they were paid 50,000 and they were supposed to be paying 450. I don't know those allegations if they're true, but when they complain, why are they complaining? I saw a member of parliament saying that they were supposed to be paid some amount of money and the government is not paying them. In fact, I saw something like 300,000 was spent during the public participation date for each constituency. The members of parliament who signed in that signatory of the impeachment were 291. If you calculate that money, that's 87,300,000. Just wasting time, wasting nonsense, wasting our resources with a very impunity. I think we should now tell the parliamentarians, all of them, and the government should be solved. Thank you. I'm very disappointed.
Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Relax.
I'm so angry because our parliamentarians, they are doing nothing. Nothing. We have a lot of things to discuss as a nation.
I said this Titus last week that there was a court case that was filed in 2016, Katiba Institute. There were 3 judges, Kimondo, Odunga, and I think Chachamwita. They outlawed those sections 45, 44, 45, 47, 48, all those things that made it difficult in the Elections Act, in the Constitution, and of course in the County Governments Act to impeach, to recall these elected members of the assemblies, county assembly or parliament. Please read it, exercise yourself to it, go to Kenya Law reporting, look for that case. Read it. If you're disappointed with members of parliament, we do the same thing as Kenyans. Sometimes, Benji, I don't know why it's so difficult, but sometimes I get hung up because you are a journalist, and a lot of people ask me these questions. Ken, where do you draw the divide between being a journalist, an objective journalist, and talking about these things? I realized at some point in my life that Kenya is us and Kenya is our business. The more we keep quiet from objectively talking about issues and respectfully, the more we get lost. So we are gagged and caged with, you journalists cannot speak about these things, and yet you are Kenyan, yet we pay tax, yet you are affected by all these things. So I understand your disappointment, Titus, but I'll tell you this. Odunga, Kimondo, and Mwita outlawed those sections, found them illegal because they were going against the Constitution. Please find them, read them. Let's exercise the same authority that we have, that members of parliament, our elected representatives, using our donated power, are using to impeach the deputy president, to recall them. I don't see a problem with that. So I'll approve more. Professor Fred Simiyu, are you still here? If he's not here, there is...
Before Fred goes, Ken, before Fred goes.
Okay.
Yeah, just to spice up the discussion a bit, I want to read a tweet here. Polycarp Hinga on X, on Twitter. He says, and this has 91,000 reads, 91,000. But Gachagua is not a good person. Somewhere deep down, you all know this. That is Polycarp Hinga. I don't even know him, but I'm happy to just read different opinions at all times of the day. Let me just remind the lady of something that I said earlier, and that is that the issue of public participation is one of considering the dimension of representation versus participation. So it's actually not a requirement per se in this process. In fact, it is used to gauge public opinion through various means, but it's not required to hold those public votes for an impeachment. And that is because impeachment proceedings are political and complex, and normally charged introducing public participation can complicate the process and lead to a multitude of challenges. The legal requirement for evidence and due process could be overshadowed by public opinion, which may not be informed based on facts. Rather, it would be informed based on emotions, based on tribe, which is what you're hearing here. I'm also getting messages, Ken, people saying, hey, I'm in the space, but I just feel, why are you guys so harsh on Gachagua? What about his boss? Or is it only Gachagua to be held accountable, etc.? Again, this kind of argument is a fallacy because it is relativism. And it is, we talked about this last week, Ken, it's akin to saying a man has been accused of murder, and then he's saying, yeah, okay, I killed, but also Ken also killed. So why don't you go look for Ken with Kony in Uganda, and then you can charge us all together? And really, law should not work that way. So I think that there's a lot of misplaced anger or displaced anger. I think that, and by the way, Ken, this is my humble suggestion. Some of us have worked the whole day today. I can see the numbers continuing to rise, and maybe what I suggest is let's wrap this thing up at 10:30 so that people can also have some more anticipation now to join, and then we do more research on the charges when we do another space to discuss this, so that we don't just go on endlessly. I can see a lot of people are reacting and are tuning in more and more, so that we can have substantive discussions, and maybe we will be lucky and fortunate enough and competent enough to harness this anger for greater good, because people are disappointed in many things, but the solution to this disappointment does not lay at all in excusing corruption, in excusing impunity, especially where a subject is actually completely caught in the crosshairs. I think it would be irresponsible for us to have 11 grounds of serious charges against a deputy president or a CS or even a president, and then to say, no, let's not move forward because also the speaker is a corrupt speaker and yet he has not been brought here. This is what the opposers of this motion are trying to tell us, that, yeah, we know there are issues with Gachagua, but what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? What about? And that is not a solid argument. That's a fallacious argument. So I would just suggest maybe you take a few more and we wrap up, and then we continue interacting. We look at how the media coverage is. We look forward to the debate without anticipating it per se. We can make some predictions here and there, but let us not try to curtail the process either within the media or within the court system, in the sense of he could be a bad man, but there are also other bad men. And if he's abusing the family, well, that's a family issue. I'm hearing a lot of warped arguments. And in a sense, I'm sorry to say, sometimes I listen to this kind of stuff, Ken, and I can just kind of see why our country is actually messed up. However, hope does last. And I'll be back to give my conclusion, and then we can wrap up. Thank you.
Benji, I actually agree with you because it's a Sunday and we've had 2 hours and 24 minutes of this. I'll just like to urge everyone, the over 600 of you still here, that next week we'll be hosting this, and next it will even be bigger and better. The reason why is because this week is busy. Remember, Governor Kimutai's trial starts. Most important is what is happening in the Senate. And we anticipate that for the first time, the president is going to speak this week. He really needs to add voice to this. And depending on how it goes on Thursday, the future of this country will be redefined by what happens. The biggest question is the political process and where the court is. Will the court overstretch, overreach, or will it leave the political process to settle the way it began? So it will be a very important conversation. I'm just speaking, and quite a big number of people have joined. Ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate you being here. However, it's a Sunday. We also need to let you sleep. The person who's been hanging online for a long time is Professor Fred Simi. If you're not here, I'll give it to Weston Chihalo, or Trevor Omondi, Tevin. If any one of you is here, please, 1 minute. We have 4 minutes to close this.
Yes, Ken Jungo, I've called it right. Thank you so much. I can't talk about the courts because I'm a public health officer. I don't know about the courts. So I've heard the previous speakers blaming Gachagua. I don't know why people are blaming Rigathi. Let me tell you this. A man without a tribe is a man without identity. I heard you say that you're from Suba. That's your identity. I'm a Luo, and look at what's happening. Opio is a Luo. He's selling energy sector to Adani. Starbucks to supply us with jet fuel. Since Treasury, John Mbadi is also Luo. Giving PPEs to Adani Airport, basically selling our country. Personally, I've never heard Rigathi Gachagua on a scandal. Look at Moses Kuria, the man who was hired the other day. This man had a 14.5 billion edible oil scandal, which only 2.8 million 20 liters of jerry cans arrived in Kenya. I just want to ask those previous speaker blaming Rigathi. Is Rigathi hiking our taxes and pay bills, which will be subjected to taxes starting the coming December? Is Rigathi selling our airport? Is Rigathi selling our food system to Bill Gates? Is Rigathi selling our health system to Adani, IMF, and Bill Gates? Thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you. Good question. But I feel, as much as you are right, Tevin, if we bring a lot of issues to this space, we might get lost, but we will definitely be hosting this space every Sunday. All these issues that Kenyans need to ventilate about, I assure you we will be talking about them. So thank you so much for your contribution, and Kenyans feel the same. I have 2 more people, and I guess we will be closing in less than 2 minutes. So Benji, I'll remember these 2 names. I'll give you your closing remarks. Then I can close. Then we can meet next week on Sunday at 8 p.m.
Ken, I'm here.
Oh, this is Professor Fred.
No, this is Weston.
Weston, proceed. 1 minute. We really need to close.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks. 1 minute, Ken. What I will say is that Rigathi is supremely unqualified to be the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and that we cannot tolerate such a character. It's an indictment on us as a society. We have no sense of morality, we have no sense of values, we have no sense of probity. We wax lyrical about accountability, but when push comes to shove, we develop cold feet. And we relapse into some very fallacious arguments and tribal cocoons. That will not take us far. Let me just put it to you like this, Ken and Benji. Take out all those 11 charges. Some of them could constitute criminal charges in a court of law if we were a functioning democracy. But on the question of tribal mobilization, balkanizing the country along ethnic lines, that is sufficient ground to impeach Rigathi. On the question of gender and the intersectionality of gender, with all aspects as far as development is concerned, For him to be accused of having referred to some female politician as a prostitute, sufficient ground to impeach Rigathi. These things that people are talking about vis-a-vis the family affairs, disinheriting his late brother's family and stuff like that. We hear these cases a lot in Kenya, where widows are being disinherited by very weird people, relatives. Why do we think that we can tolerate this and reduce it to a family issue? We have many problems like this. When are we going to stand up for justice for the weak and the vulnerable? Well, I don't think his late family's brother could be likened to some other families all over the country, but justice is justice. Secondly, Ken, you're saying the courts should force these two individuals to work together, or whether they could. Why would the courts force these two individuals to work together when it's clear that there is no love lost between them? Where will that take the country? There will be stasis. So, for the sake of stability, and people should get it clear, when you say Rigathi should be impeached, that does not in any way amount to support for William Ruto. It doesn't. We're saying this. The political elite tend to coalesce and close ranks against the interests of the Kenyan people. When they fall out like this factionalism, I can tell you it's in the best interest of us. When they don't fall out, they are busy looting, they are busy making policies, they are busy making laws that are against the people of Kenya. And therefore, for me, for no other reason that Rigathi Gachagua advocates exclusivity, advocates balkanization of the state, thinks that you can derive political legitimacy out of defining yourself as a tribal warlord, sufficient reason to impeach him. Otherwise, we'll be creating sufficient ground for genocide at a later stage. Move such a person as far away from the presidency as possible. You cannot afford to have somebody like this hovering around the presidency. What if something happens to William Ruto? You will have a disaster. We already have got a problem. This will be a disaster. So we have to stop him here and now. We'll deal with other problems about Adani, about William Ruto later, one at a time. So my prediction, Ken, is that the Senate will uphold the impeachment of Rigathi, because William Ruto could not have gone ahead with this if he wasn't sure that he can win this war. He may seek redress in the courts. The courts will not save him, because I think if the judiciary intervenes in this matter, that would amount to judicial overreach. Let the political elite settle this matter once and for all. We get a replacement and we'll deal with other problems when and as they appear. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Weston.